So for the first portion of our meeting, we are going to have our state committee forum. And we're very pleased that Adria Coletti has been willing to organize this portion of the program. So at this point, I will turn things over to Adria.
Great. And Jim, you can time for me? Or
sure, just tell me what you want.
Okay. So what we're going to do first is the elected position. So that's Justin Klekota and Rand Wilson. And what I'm going to do here is you're going to have each a couple minutes to tell us who you are and why you're running for this position. And then I'm going to ask each of a series of 4 different questions. And then you'll have about 2 minutes to answer. And then you'll have another 2 minutes at the end to wrap up. And we decided that the best way to do this is there will be no question and rebuttal. I will just ask you the question. You will each have 2 minutes to answer it. And we will start. I'll start by flipping a coin, and whoever who wants to call.
Don't be shy.
Yep, somebody call it. All right, I'm going to pick. Rand, you call it.
Heads.
It is tails. So Justin, you get the first question. You get to answer the first question first, and then we'll alternate. So Rand, you'll get the second one. So Justin, couple minutes. Introduce yourself and let us know why you want to represent the 2nd Middlesex District in the state committee.
Thank you. So, as you know, I'm Justin Klekota, your current Democratic State Committeeman. It's been an honor representing the 2nd Middlesex District, which includes Somerville, Medford, Cambridge, and Winchester. I am the first member of the LGBT community to win this seat. And together, we've organized dozens of phone banks that drew hundreds of volunteers for Biden, Harris, and Senate Democrats. And most recently, I organized phone banks to help Democrats win back the seat formerly held by George Santos. And we did. So we just made our House majority that much larger. And on the policy front, we also advocated together successfully for the climate and mail-in voting legislation that is now law. So if reelected, I will continue to work for Dems to help them win in 2024. We know the stakes are very high this year. A little bit of my background. I grew up in a blue-collar community and moved to Massachusetts decades ago to complete my doctorate at Harvard. Since then, I've been committed to cancer research as well as life-saving vaccine development. And most recently, I had the opportunity to work on the COVID vaccine, which I thought was pretty cool. And over the past 20 years, I've been proud to help transform our politics to be more progressive here in Somerville. And if you have a sense for the history, there have been some tough campaigns, including against far-right extremists who would even threaten and intimidate voters, including people of color and members of the gay community. And during one election day, I was even physically threatened by a far-right extremist, and I stood my ground. And we've come a long way in Somerville, and I'm proud of our progressive political transformation. And if re-elected to the Democratic State Committee, I am committed to diversity and inclusion, and I strongly oppose any form of discrimination in our party platform. And our commitment to diversity and keeping our party a big tent, it's not just about fairness. It's our path to victory in 2024. We don't win if we're not a big tent as Democrats. And so I feel passionately about that. And so on March 5th, if you believe in party strength through diversity, I ask for your vote, and I invite you to join our campaign at electjustin.org. Thank you and God bless.
Rand?
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, and thank you to Somerville Dems. And thank you, Justin, for your service and to the 2nd Middlesex. So my name is Rand Wilson. I've been a union organizer for more than 40 years. I've been very active in Somerville politics. I spent the last few decades trying to help build a very progressive city council and working to make Somerville a union town with good jobs for Somerville residents. I fought hard for the linkage fee that created the Somerville Job Creation and Retention Trust. And I convene a monthly meeting that brings labor, community, and environmental activists together under the auspices of Somerville Stands Together coalition. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished in Somerville. Around 2015 or 2016, I became a born-again Democrat. I've always voted Democratic, but I wasn't active in the party. And but I got excited and energized by the 2016 Sanders campaign. Campaigned hard for Sanders. I went to the DNC to support him. But when Sanders lost, I campaigned hard for Hillary Clinton. And I vowed then to work inside the Democratic Party to fix what I believe is a broken political system and a rigged economy. And I joined my ward committee, and I've been elected as a delegate to every state convention since. What I noticed at the state conventions, and what I've noticed in general about the Democrats, great rhetoric, but little follow through. Great speeches, but no accountability. And particularly after the homophobic and unethical attack on Alex Morris, a candidate for Congress in Western Mass, I was just livid and outraged. So I started to look into the state committee, and I began to discover how unaccountable the
Rand.
was to grassroots Democrats. Oh,
Wrap up, please. Okay. All right.
sorry about that.
Okay. So
I'll
as we're
finish up in the Q&A.
yeah. Okay. So Rand, the next question is yours to answer first.
Oh.
So data from the Secretary of State's office shows a decline in party membership among Massachusetts voters. How will you engage with the Massachusetts Democratic Party's existing efforts to engage voters, particularly young voters? And what actions would you take to improve the ongoing efforts?
Well, speaking of young voters, I'm connected to two very important young voters, my son and my daughter. And boy, am I getting an earful from them about the Democrats. They are impatient with the slow pace of change. They want a future that they can believe in. They don't see the party leading a transformation around climate change. They're totally dismayed by the genocide in Gaza, and it's turning them away from the Democratic Party. So to win them and others like them back to the Democrats, we're going to have a lot more action on college debt, on affordable housing, on climate change, and on jobs with careers. These kids don't have careers. There's no pension anymore. So, and youth aren't the only disaffected voters. And if I'm elected to the DSC, I'm going to push for more organizing, not just to elect candidates, but around our core issues, and particularly where working class residents, working class Democrats are abandoning us. If you look around the state, there are serious problems emerging, southeastern Mass and in the suburbs around Worcester, where there's a growing, I don't know what you want to call it, like a cancer that we need to address. So I'll stop there, but I think there's a lot of things we can do to win back working class Americans, youth, people of color to the Democratic Party. But it's not going to be done with rhetoric. It has to be done with organizing and action.
Thank you, Rand. Justin?
So I definitely take issue with the negative framing of the question. Since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, the Democratic Party is energized and we're fighting back. We have consistently won every special election since that's been competitive. We gained seats in the midterms for the Senate, and I was a part of organizing phone banks to help Democrats make those wins. And so I think, you see Democrats consistently beating historical trends in terms of our performance, and we're beating the polls. This party is energized and ready to fight back against the Trump administration. And so we think about the leadership that we want on the Democratic State Committee. We want somebody who spends more time pushing back against Republicans rather than attacking the Democratic Party. No one's going to follow you as a Democrat if you're spending so much time venting negativity toward the Democratic Party. So we have to keep that in mind as party leaders. We have to be there to help voters realize there's a way to fight back and win, and we have been winning. Now, in addition to my phone bank organizing, I am actively doing a lot of recruiting. In Ward 7, where I'm chair, we have one of the youngest members who is running for ward committee in the entire state. And so we actually have one of the youngest ward committee candidates in the entire state. And he just turned 18 in January. So I won't name his name to embarrass him, but we're trying to be inclusive at that level. But also on the state committee, we have members of college Dems and young Dems, as well as our youth add-on members that are part of all of our subcommittees. And so part of being inclusive, especially reach out to young voters, is keeping them part of the process and also conveying a positive message on issues such as climate, which I work very hard to help pass new Massachusetts climate law, and certainly hoping to work to see our city councilors actually make progress implementing the new climate law to reduce our own emissions here in Somerville. So definitely there's a lot of work to be done, but we have to be clear as Democrats, especially on the state committee, that we can win if we give voters a path.
I'm Justin. Thank you. The next question is yours to start with, Justin. So the strength of the Democratic Party nationally and in Massachusetts is its diversity. Do you support the continuation of add-on seats designated to bring underrepresented populations to full representation? How would you propose ensuring that underrepresented populations have a voice in the state party?
So I absolutely support our add-on diversity seats, as well as our 20-year members, where most of our party diversity actually is. Without the 20-year and the add-on diversity seats, our state committee would not be representative of the Democratic Party. It would be overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly straight. And that is not the kind of leadership the Democratic Party needs. We need to be all-inclusive and be a big tent. Now, this is one of the key differences in this race. My opponent for months has been attacking our diversity add-on Democratic State Committee members, so specifically the Black, Latino, LGBT, and disabled members of the State Committee, who were elected, by the way, to the party to increase diversity. Every member of the State Committee is elected, no one is appointed. And my opponent has also proposed that we actually segregate our voting by race, orientation, and disability, such that Black, Latino, LGBT, and disabled members could only be nominated, voted for, and held accountable, in his words, to members of their own race, orientation, and disability. This is contrary to our democratic values. This is contrary to our values as a Democratic Party. Our party is a party of one person, one vote. Everyone should be treated equally, and everyone should deserve a vote when we elect new members to our state party. And so I think the stakes could not be higher this year. We need to make it clear as a Democratic Party that we are a big tent, and by being a big tent, it's not just about fairness to all members of our community, but it's also about winning in 2024. Thank you.
Thanks. Rand, the same question to you.
I'm committed to a state committee that reflects Massachusetts, but I'm also committed to a state committee that's majority elected. I think we can have democracy and diversity on our state committee. And I've made this an issue because, as I mentioned before, there's a lack of accountability. We've seen, it's not just our state party, it's the national party as well. But here's, I live in Massachusetts, I live here in Somerville, trying to make it better here. And I think we need reform, we need change. We have to look to see what's happening where wealth on our watch has been transferred from the working class to the 1%, trillions of dollars, and Democrats have stood by and done nothing. We've just seen an all-Democratic legislature and governor give tax breaks to wealthy individuals and big corporations when now we have a budget shortfall. And they're not talking about revenue. They're talking about cutting services. These are Democrats. I'm outraged by that. And I think there's something seriously wrong with our party that is going along with that kind of I would have to say, Democrat in name only thinking. So what I would like to see is more accountability with the Democratic Party. And that means a majority elected state committee that can be held accountable and is more reflective of grassroots Democrats. I think we need to have real change. Justin says that I'm for segregated.
I'm Rand.
Oh, well, just let me finish one last sentence. You know, right now we have segregated appointments, and I would, you know, that's what's really happening. An inside insular group is segregated appointments. I'm for segregated elections of the Democratic State Committee. And, you know,
All right, you're well over. So Rand, you're up next first for the next one. In your past experience, which actions or efforts to elect Democrats and advance the party are you most proud of? How were you able to impact the effort? You're on mute.
yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm particularly proud of the work that we've done here in Somerville. You know, I've really dug in on the grassroots here, trying to build unity in Somerville around working class issues, and being a leader in my ward committee and in the campaign for Bernie Sanders in 2016 and 2020. Those are where I've made my bones in the Democratic Party. I've gone to every convention, and I'm proud of the fact that at those conventions, we've brought forward resolutions for change and for reform, and tried to work inside the system to advance these reforms, not just around the composition of the party, but also around transparency, around dark money in politics, around which is campaign finance, things that we can do internally to walk the walk as Democrats, not just talk the talk.
Okay, Justin, over to you.
So, yeah, I'll definitely have to answer that question. I just have to respond. I mean, in Rand's own words, he just told us he's for segregated elections. And this is not who we are as a Democratic Party. You know, we cannot have a caucus system that Rand Wilson envisions that allows attendees to show up and be told who they can or cannot vote for on the basis of their race, orientation, and disability. That diminishes us all, and it's extremely offensive. And he's had numerous opportunities to walk back this position. He's refused to. So we cannot have this as a Democratic Party. We need the party of one person, one vote, and be a Big Ten to win. In terms of my accomplishments, my passion for diversity and inclusion has motivated me to organize hundreds of volunteers. We've had multiple wins for the Senate, you know, especially not just for the general election, but if you phone bank with me, you know that we continue all the way through the holidays for the Georgia runoff. So our elections don't end until Georgia's done with the runoff system. And I've been proud to be the victories that give us senators like Raphael Warnock, who's a fantastic Democratic candidate who's now had to run probably 4 times now for his seat in just a matter of years. And I'm also, you know, really proud of the diversity that I helped create on the ward committee. Ward 7 has the largest, most active, and most diverse ward committee in the city. And it's that commitment to diversity and bringing people into the fold, giving them a path to volunteer to help elect Democrats that we need as a Democratic State Committee person. We need somebody who believes in the party's core values and believes in the party as a big tent and believes in a positive vision that motivates people to want to contribute so that we can defeat Republicans. We have to take seriously the threat presented by Donald Trump, and we cannot afford to have a criminal president. And we can't have division in our party, especially when half of our party is under attack, by my opponent. We need to be a big tent to win in 2024. It's about fairness. It's about our future as a democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin, if elected, which are the top 3 subcommittees that you will request to serve on? And how do you believe that your service will benefit the subcommittees and the 2nd Middlesex District?
So I currently serve on the public policy and resolution subcommittees. And on the resolution subcommittees, we not just, endorse climate legislation. We also passed a bill supporting a legalization of overdose prevention care. Currently, the law is so broad that doctors and nurses who try to intervene to save somebody who's experienced a drug overdose could actually be held criminally liable simply for being in the presence of the illegal drugs. So we have to untie our healthcare workers' hands so they can actually intervene to prevent drug overdoses. And that passed unanimously through subcommittee, and it was passed unanimously by the state committee. And that was a result of my efforts to build a broad coalition of people all over the state, as well as in Somerville, in support of overdose prevention. Healthcare should not be a crime. Whether we're talking about women's right to choose, whether we're talking about gender affirming care, whether we're talking about overdose prevention, healthcare should not be a crime. And in addition, on the resolution subcommittee, I spoke passionately against Rand Wilson's resolution to his proposal to eliminate half of our state party by targeting Black, Latino, LGBT, and disabled members, making it clear how offensive it was, and also spoke passionately against his proposal to segregate voting. So I definitely have been active in my role in the resolutions committee. On the public policy committee, we've been continually engaged to try to make sure that the new climate law that is now the law of the land in Massachusetts is actually implemented. And the third committee I would also be active in is, as a member of the LGBTQI community, would be happy to be part of the LGBTQI subcommittee to make sure that the messaging come up from our community actually represents our community's full diversity, that we recognize that a lot of our wins in court from the gay community are coming from legal arguments that sex discrimination laws protect the LGBT community. And because of that kind of argumentation, we now have nationwide non-discrimination protections in the workplace. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Justin. Rand?
Am I muted? No.
Yeah, we're
Hi.
good.
Is this the last question?
This is the last question, and then you get a little bit of a summary.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just to be clear, I am committed to diversity, and I just believe that we can have a more democratically elected committee. I think there's some issue around semantics here. When I look at the committee, I see a majority of its members who are either self-nominated and elected in an insular way by other committee members. So I don't see them as elected by grassroots Democrats. What I want to see is a majority of our committee elected by grassroots Democrats. And I just want to make it very clear that we can have a majority elected committee and have add-ons and a diverse committee. So I guess I want to be on the bylaws and the charter amendments committees, because that's where I see the changes that are going to be needed. And I'm not wedded to any particular solution to this problem, but it's pretty obvious to me that when you have I think it's 119 or 120 lifetime delegates who are unaccountable to anybody, that they can be whipped by the chair and are essentially a bulwark against the kinds of changes that we need to make in the conduct of the committee and in the direction of our party. If we fail to address economic inequality, we will continue to decline as a party, which is what's been happening. We've lost something like 30% of the Democratic membership in the last 25 or 30 years. So I'm hoping to be on those two committees. I think I'd also be a natural fit in the Labor Committee, but you know, committee appointments are made by the chair, not by you know, it's not what you want to join. You have to be selected by the chair. Anyways, I'm looking forward to serving on.
Okay, I think you muted yourself again. All right.
I think I was muted by the chair.
The chair. All right. So you got 1 minute to wrap up. Why should members of this the city committee support your candidacy? Why should we vote for you? 1 minute.
Who's that?
To you, Rand.
Oh, to me.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of wrapped up just now, but I'll reiterate that my objectives aren't just around the composition of the state committee. My objective is to have a more vibrant, more aggressive, and more attractive Democratic Party, particularly to working class voters, to youth, and to people of color. I believe that we need to make changes internally to accomplish that, but I want to see a Democratic Party that's winning for working people and winning more often for working people. And that means making some internal changes. It means doing more organizing. It means walking the walk around campaign finance and conducting ourselves in a way that's a model of democracy, not a travesty of democracy. So I want your support to go to the state committee, to make changes in the way that our party conducts itself, and to win for working people.
Thank you, Rand. Justin?
Thank you. So once again, thank you for hosting me today. You know, it's been an honor representing this district. I've been part of our community for 20 years as a registered Democrat. This was part of my activism since Progressive Democrats of Somerville. So there's definitely a lot of history here. You know, I really feel like we need to be focused as a party on defeating Donald Trump and Republicans. That we cannot afford to have divisions where, you know, our internal party members are actually being attacked simply for volunteering their time. You know, it's been an honor to serve with all the members on the Democratic State Committee, you know, our diversity add-on, as well as the 20-year members. So these are people who basically don't get paid for their efforts. They're here to help Democrats win. And so, like I said, we only win as a party if we're a big tent. We only win on climate if we're a big tent. We only win on economic justice if we're a big tent. We only, you know, win on public health matters and healthcare if we're a big tent. So it's important to remember that the only way we're going to realize our progressive democratic values and make them law is if we elect Joe Biden and a Democratic Congress. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, Rand. This has been a pleasure. Next up, we have Diane Masters and Elaine Almquist, who are for the second Middlesex District Women Caucus seat. Are both of you here?
Here.
Okay, great. All right.
I'm here.
Coin flip time. I can actually flip it. Somebody call it.
Head.
It is tails. All right, so Elaine, you are up first. Briefly, a couple minutes. Introduce yourself and why you are running for this seat.
Great. Thank you, Adria. My name is Elaine Almquist. I live in Ward 7. I use she, her pronouns. I've actually been serving on the Democratic State Committee since 2011. This is a seat that I've really had the honor of serving in before. I've served in a youth add-on seat, and I've also served in a gender balance add-on seat. I've been an active part of our Democratic Party for 22 years, and now I'm a professional campaign strategist, trainer, and coach. So I live and breathe the Democratic Party all day, every day. This is what I do. I'm running for this seat in particular. One, I just want to make it very clear. I am not running against Diane or to take her out. She's been an incredible colleague and partner on the state committee, and I've had the honor of working on some races with her, one in which we flipped a seat from Jim Lyons red to blue. It was exciting to get to work with her. She sent us volunteers to Andover from Somerville. I'm running for this seat because I hope that the vision that I have for the party is something we share, and that perhaps Diane and I will get to share that vision in seats in a different configuration maybe this year. I don't know. But I really think that the party needs some reforms, and I've been working to promote the idea that it needs these reforms for quite a long time. I actually have a document that I'm going to share the link to in the chat. You can look at the revisions on it. It has been something that colleagues and I on the state committee have been working for since 2016, 8 years. And I know we'll have opportunities to explain some of the details over the next few questions.
Thank you, Elaine. Diane?
Hi, I'm Diane Masters, and I think I know most of you. Before I was on the state committee, which I joined in, 2016, which means Elaine's closer to being a 20-year member than I'll ever be. I was the chair of the Somerville Democrats for 6 years. And during that time, I did a lot of things to try to get Somerville more involved in the Democratic State Party. For example, number one was I brought the Democratic State Committee meeting to Somerville High School and got a chance to get everybody who was interested and never been to a state committee meeting to see what it was all about. It might have been a little boring for many people, but it was here in your backyard. I have been involved in all aspects of Democratic politics, from being a teller and a whip at the convention. I've knocked doors in Brockton when they needed to flip the state, Leominster, Andover, as Elaine remarked, Leominster, all the parts of the state that are not Somerville, where it's really a lot more difficult to make the case for why people should vote for the Democrats. I've taught at the Democratic Campaign Institute. I've been involved in recounts. I've raised money. What I'm most proud of is I've recruited people to run for office. Like starting with a woman who worked on the Elizabeth Warren campaign with me, who was this very shy, very kind, incredibly smart woman who came into my office one day and said, I think I might run for the city council in Boston. And immediately we sat down and we wrote out a plan, and she's now the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Then there was a Somerville City Committee meeting where a woman came to speak, and I listened to her and I thought, wow, this woman's impressive. She wanted to be attorney general. She was running against a guy who'd run for governor, lieutenant governor, state rep, you name it, he ran for it. And I went to work for her the very next day after that meeting, and she's Maura Healey. She beat someone who had every other union and everybody else in the state lined up against her. And then last.
Thank you, Diane.
Yeah, I'll get back to the rest of it.
Okay, so same series of questions that I asked Rand and Justin. So Diane, you're up first. Again, data from the Secretary of State's office shows a decline in party membership among Massachusetts voters. How will you engage with the Massachusetts Democratic Party's existing efforts to engage voters, particularly young voters, and what actions would you take to improve the ongoing efforts?
Okay, so I think we have a real problem in terminology, because it's become very clear that yes, that people are not registering as Democrats, but that's because we've come to a time where acknowledging yourself as an independent seems to be more admirable than signing up to be part of a party. And what the party needs to do and be more articulate about is all the stuff that Democrats stand for that you never hear about. You know, we're the party that stands up for the little guy. We're the party that is there for the misfortunate. We're the people who want to open our houses and our homes to the oppressed. And we have to make the case that all of those things are of a piece about what being a Democrat is. Now, most independents in this state vote Democratic, but it's become so tainted to be a partisan that that's part of the problem. I helped at a forum in Somerville when I was chair called Why Parties Matter, was one of the leading experts in political science on the subject of parties, and the head of the Democratic State Party and the members of the Democratic National Committee, all on the panel here in Somerville, to talk about why parties matter and how you make the case about how all the good stuff the U.S. has gotten has come from Democrats. So I think we need to be better in how we identify. I don't personally care about the numbers going up or down, because that ship is really out of our control. But we get people to vote Democratic is what I care about.
Thank you, Diane. Elaine, over to you.
Thank you. This is actually something that I brought up when we had our party chair election, not this last time where we elected Steve Kerrigan, but the time before, because in the 4 years in that period, we had lost 90,000 registered Democrats. I haven't looked at the numbers up until now, but it is a really big chunk. Democrats only make up 29% of the registered voters in Massachusetts. So, one of the things that I think we need to improve is that we don't really give voters a reason to be Democrats. We give them a lot of reasons not to vote for Republicans. We give them reasons to vote for our candidates, but party affiliation is something that comes along with a couple of things, which in my impression, the biggest part of which is our platform. We need to talk about issues, and we need to talk about issues that actually matter to regular people's lives. And we're going to touch on, engaging youth in the future, but that is one of the ways that you engage all voters in a party. We have a beautiful platform, in my humble opinion, in Massachusetts. If anybody has actually gone to read it, we believe in some really incredible things. But as a party, we do a lot to talk about the candidates who are on the ballot and not the issues and how we're going to work on them to affect people's lives. So one of the things that I've been pushing for in the party, and what I will continue to push for in the party, is a shift from talking about individual candidates on our ballot to the issues and how we actually get those issues changed in policy to improve the lives of people in our Commonwealth.
Thank you, Elaine. You're first on the next question. So the strength of the Democratic Party nationally and in Massachusetts is its diversity. Do you support the continuation of add-on seats designed to bring underrepresented populations to full representation? How would you propose ensuring that underrepresented populations have a voice in the state party?
Thanks for that question. This is not a question that you can answer in 2 minutes. It is just too complicated of an issue. So if anybody wants to talk more about this, I'm happy to do so outside of this 2 minutes and this forum. I've served in a couple of add-on seats. They do an okay job right now to make sure that the party has accommodations for people who are really locked out of the earlier processes. And I think this is part of kind of the dialogue you might have been hearing earlier with our male counterparts. So there's 5 different ways that people get on the Democratic State Committee. It's a complicated process. The first are ex officio, because they're either elected to statewide office or to Congress. The next ones are the ballot seats, which our gentleman who just spoke are running for. The next round is us here. And then there's appointed positions from organizations affiliated with the Democratic Party, like Young Democrats and the Bay State Stonewall Dems. And then the last round is the add-on round. The reason why we have that last round is because the first 4 rounds do not produce an equitable body that matches with the population in Massachusetts. So we had to create add-on seats to make up for that. Ultimately, our goal as a party is to achieve equity without having to add on seats, because everybody has equitable access to the earliest seats, and that's just not the case. I support us keeping those seats until we reach that equity, but I think we could be doing an awful lot more to make sure that we're not locking people out of those earlier seats, and therefore getting rid of the necessity to tack on all these seats because our elected bodies are not as representative as they should be of the full population of the Commonwealth. I support every effort to make this committee more equitable for all people.
Great. Thank you, Elaine. Diane, same question.
It's a very, I mean, I agree with Elaine that the add-ons serve a purpose right now. We have, you know, we have the bisexual seats, we have the trans seats, we have the disability seats, we have veteran seats. There's been a real push to really go out into all sorts of communities that are not underrepresented. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, you may not like the way it happens, but you have to also think about it this way. Elaine and I are running for the caucus seat. The caucus seat means that people who are on the city committees and ward committees send people to vote for one of us. Now, everybody who's on a ward committee has been elected by the general public. When you go on March 5th to vote, you will be voting for people on your ward committee to be on the Democratic ward committee. So it is actually open to the general public to vote on those things, because you don't even have to be a Democrat to take a Democratic ballot in this state. Does this make sense to people? Does this process, because the process of the caucus seat is very convoluted, but every ward in the entire Senate district sends representatives who are voted by the ward committees to pick one of us. In terms of diversity, I recruited Andre Green to take on the caucus seat and apply for it when it was opened up the last time it was open. I got Lydia Edwards to be on the state committee. You just have to twist people's arms and get them to become engaged. I don't know how many of you on this call would want to be on the state committee, but I'm happy to convince you and take you to meetings. And we got Bob Massey on just a couple of years ago, who hadn't been involved before. And that, you know, there are all kinds of ways to get on. And right now, I think having less ways would be a problem.
Great. Thank you, Diane. You're up first for this next question. In your past experience, which actions or efforts to elect Democrats and advance the party are you most proud of? And how were you able to impact that effort?
Okay, this is where I really feel like I have some things I should actually crow about. I'm on the bylaws and the rules committee, and one of the first things I did was push for people to be allowed to show up at the caucuses and register as Democrats for the very first time and support the candidates they want to see get the nomination of the party. Never happened before. You used to have to be a registered Democrat weeks in advance. Now, you know, if you wanted to show up and you'd have been an independent and you wanted to be a delegate for Sandra Chain Diaz for governor, you could have showed up and just signed your name, agreed to be a Democrat then, and run for a delegate. I also put into place something that Rand will appreciate, which was a way to get people off the state committee who don't go to meetings, because there are too many people and there are too much sort of names on the ballot that not names on the list that don't do anything. So if you don't attend a certain number of meetings, you will now be removed from the Democratic State Committee. I've also pushed for high school students to run for delegates for the convention. You no longer have to be over 18 to run to be a delegate. I've pushed for high school Democrats to have more of a say, not only in the state party, but also to be represented on the Democratic National Committee. And I've beaten up a lot of you to come be delegates to the convention. I can't tell you how many times I called Rand and said, Rand, will you please run as a delegate? And I made a huge effort when I was chair of Somerville to get all the people who were now engaged because of Bernie Sanders to join their warrant committees and get involved in the city committee. And I'm proud to say Ben, you and Campen, and remember good old Ben Bradlow, all showed up. And I forced them all to become members. And I even encouraged Ben, you and Campen, and took them to meet donors to run for city council. You've got to just keep beating and beating and beating the bushes to find people.
Thank you, Diane. Elaine?
Thanks. I mean, there are a lot of different things that I'm proud of over the 22 years I spent working in Democratic politics. I will start with a couple. I served on the board of the Young Democrats for 8 years, and I left as the president. And it's exciting that we have Jack here, who has served in that same role and active, and and there are others here. I won't name everybody. When I joined the Young Democrats of Massachusetts, when I was in my early 20s, we had about 250 members, and they were mostly State House staff. I focused quite a lot on membership growth and engagement. And when I left, we had over 2,500 members, and we had chartered 8 chapters across the state, many of which are still standing chapters that are active. I think that is a legacy that I'm extraordinarily proud of. These days, I do more work to support candidates who are running for office. I own a consulting firm, and I work with Democrats and progressives that are women, people of color, and people from underrepresented populations, because those are the people who are not equitably represented in our government. And so I focus my efforts on that. The last piece that I'll mention in this moment is that I've been working with a national candidate recruitment organization called Contest Every Race that text messages Democrats where no Democrat is running. Last year, we recruited 1,250 Democrats to run for local office across the country where no Democrat was running, and half of them won their seats. So the party stuff is great, but we have so much bigger picture, which is engaging people in the issues that matter so that their lives are changed for the better.
Right. Thank you. Elaine, you're first for the next question. If elected, which are the top 3 committees that you'll request to serve on? And how would your service on those committees benefit, the subcommittees? How would your service benefit the subcommittees and the 2nd Middlesex District?
Great question. I just want to reiterate what Rand said earlier, because some of us have been on the committee. You don't always get the committee that you request. So the committees that I'm super interested in serving on are Charter and Bylaws and Campaign Services. Currently, I serve on Youth Services, Personnel, and Resource Development. The Youth Services Committee is one of the ones that I'm really excited to be continuing my service in, because it's the one that helps to recruit and train young members who are coming to convention for the first time. So I shot a new delegate training video for the party a few years ago, for example, to help delegates who wanted to get involved with the constitutional races understand what the convention was and how to participate. I am a professional fundraiser, so the Resource Development Committee is a committee that I support with my fundraising expertise. We haven't met as a personnel committee because the personnel committee just reviews applications for people who want to work for the party, and we haven't had any of those applicants. But I've served on lots of the committees, including the executive committee, in my 12 years, and I'm happy to be of service wherever I'm asked to serve.
Thank you, Elaine. Diane?
As everybody says, you don't get to pick necessarily where you go. And I have been fortunate. I've been on public policy. I've been on personnel with Elaine, and we've never met in person. When there have been issues that should have been brought to the personnel committee, they disappeared. I've been on the bylaws and the rules committee, where, as I told you, I really felt like that's where you could actually bring about change. I mean, the problem with trying to bring about any kind of change is you're still only one person, and you do have to constantly compromise in ways to get the changes. Like, for us to get the people off the committee took 4 years to come up with a way that people were satisfied with the language to, okay, you haven't come to any meetings. It was nice having you. There's the door. But these things don't happen quickly. I don't know what else I could say about committees, except that I will continue to try to push for people to come to Somerville and have them take part. Or, you know, the state committee moves to every congressional district around the state. And it's much better to have it near here than have it, you know, way at the other end of the district, down in Milton or wherever else the district goes. So that's all I can say about that.
Right, thank you. And for a final wrap up, Diane, you've got a minute to just wrap up and tell us why the members who are caucusing should vote for you.
Well, because, I mean, between Elaine and I, we do the same things. We both work for Democratic candidates who are minorities, primarily women, and that's what we do. That's our profession. We both come from the same neighborhood. I mean, I live in Ward 6, she lives in Ward 7. And I would just like to continue doing what I'm doing, which is pushing the rock up the hill, trying to get it to move. I've been successful, and I'm happy about that. And I am proud of that. And I'm very proud of, you know, the campaigns that started at my kitchen table. Lydia Edwards' campaign started at my kitchen table. I recruited Bea Gomez to run for the city council in Boston. I love to see minorities, especially women, get elected, and I'd like to see a lot more on the state committee. That's all I can say. I ask for your vote.
Thank you, Diane. And Elaine?
Okay, I want to do like 2 sentences of housekeeping and then I'll make my final pitch. One is that we just talked about subcommittees and I forgot to mention this. All the Democratic Party subcommittees are open for any Democrat to serve on, as long as regular Democrats who are not members of the state committee don't make up more than 25% of the committee. So if you see a subcommittee that you want to be on, please join it. Like, we need you there, especially because we have people who don't have the same on the ground experience that you all have. So one, I'll just say, like, please join a subcommittee. We would love to have you. The second thing I want to say is this is kind of a complicated seat to vote for. So if I've already convinced you to vote for me, the way that you need to do it is you need to go to your ward caucus. After you elect your delegates to the state convention, you're going to elect a whole nother round of delegates. And those people, anybody could run for them, but only the ward committee members can vote for them. Those people will go to an in-person meeting on March 23rd at 2 p.m., location TBD, and that's who will vote and when they will vote in this race. It's complicated, so I want you all to understand the process. And I think if you know that, you can sort of understand my earlier comments about how those earlier seats in the committee are complicated.
Thank you, Elaine, and thank you, Diane. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. And everybody, I hope this forum was beneficial to the members of their city committee. Thank you.